All right. This is episode 2 of my solo podcast, and this month I wanted to talk about self-talk. I think um, on this journey of self-love and discovering myself, I feel like self-talk is something that I've recently discovered and has been a revelation and something that I know I need to improve on. And so I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, but I wanted to start off this episode by talking about a movie scene that's been like really just hitting home as of recent, and it's it's from a movie called Our Friend, but it's a scene in which this guy, and he's in the movie, he starts off as kind of the side character, and he later on becomes one of the main characters. I mean, he becomes one of the biggest characters, but at the beginning, it kind of follows him, and he's a friend to this couple that kind of he's always been a third wheel to, has always kind of felt um, left out on, I guess. But this is a point in his life where this couple is this post-grad. This couple is doing really well, succeeding in their careers. Their marriage seems to be going really well. And he's always been kind of not the freeloader, but kind of the friend that doesn't seem to have a lot going for him. He doesn't have a well-paying job. He doesn't have a lot of other friends, etc., etc. Right? And I forget what led up to this scene, but he goes on this really deep nature hike where there's no cell service, where no one can reach him. And the movie doesn't explicitly say this, but a woman comes up to him and says, "Are you okay? Because last time I did some hike like this by myself, I was trying to commit suicide." Started revealing that those were his true intentions for those hike. It was a scene that really touched me because that feeling of falling behind and being lonely and stuff like that was never encapsulated like that before. And the reason why I bring this scene up is because I'm really struggling with my self-talk lately, and I had a phase where a week ago I had a really good week in which I established a routine of running, of exercise, of things looking up for me with regards to career and stuff like that. But this week, as I'm not able to exercise because I've been having exertion headaches, and I'm less optimistic about my new job search, and as I'm going through these things, I keep seeing myself talk to myself in a way that's very detrimental, that's very putting down, right? And this goes all the way back. I think the first time I ever talked positively about myself was this week, like in my head, in my internal dialogue, where I encouraged myself, or I told myself I can do it, or I told myself, no, you are worthy, right? It was kind of the first week where I've ever done it. The past 22 some years of my life, I feel like there was always an internal dialogue going on in my head, and I couldn't really control it. It was something that wasn't up to me. Honestly, the first time I really remember even having an internal dialogue was in middle school, where I really wanted to fit in and be popular, and it was a late start day. I went up to a group of friends that I've been hanging out with, and I wanted to fit in. So I came in, started making jokes, started being friendly, and they all had this look on their face of, I don't really want to be here with him, but how do I tell him nicely? Or they just had this look on their faces of, like they didn't really fuck with me. And at that age, it really bothered me. And at that age, I had this internal dialogue going on immediately where it was like, damn, maybe I'm not worthy of these friends, or maybe I'm not worthy of having friends, or maybe I'm not cool enough, or maybe I'm not. All these self-doubts came into my head. And from that point on, I think anytime something negative happened to me, that internal dialogue would reflect my feelings. My self-talk would reflect my feelings, and those feelings were always negative. But on this journey of self-love, I'm realizing that I need to hype myself up. I need to encourage myself. I need to talk to myself more positively in a way where something bad happens, right? And I feel a certain way. I've had enough bad feelings to know that it's just a feeling. It's just a reflection of that moment. It's not going to be something that's lasting forever. And so I've been working on that with my cardio, where I'll be running and I'll realize I have 40 fucking more minutes to run, and I feel like I can't run 40 fucking more minutes. And I'll tell myself, no, I can do it. 5 more minutes. Take it step by step, right? But for some reason, I'll have these setbacks, and whether it be a car accident, whether it be something bad, whether I get exertion headaches so I can't work out, whether it be something bad that happens in my life, I'll start to go in this spiral of, fuck, I'm the victim of my life. Of course the world has it out to get me, or some shit like that, right? And in those moments, I think it's a way of coping where I just can't think positively about myself, so that I kind of pity myself. But I know I can't approach positive self-talk through pity. There's a fine line between pity and empathy, and empathy is kind of realizing the real situation that it is, not feeling bad, but allowing myself to express my feelings and accept that I have those feelings, but also being able to move on from them, right? Being able to hype myself up after that, being able to encourage myself up after that. And that's where I've been really struggling, where I feel like I'm working that muscle little by little in running and through sports and through whatever, but once it gets to a serious life moment, I just can't seem to find the strength to not get so down on myself and not be so hard on myself. And hopefully with time that'll come, but yeah, the whole reason why I even thought about self-talk was I was for some reason I was thinking about being a father and having kids and how I would treat those kids. And I think what I failed to realize is that I was that same kid at one time, and I am still that kid, right? I once was a kid learning to ride a bike. I once was a kid trying to go to college, and looking at myself from someone on my deathbed, I think I would want myself to treat myself right now with the patience and with the love that a father would have for a kid, right? And so every time I try to talk to myself, I try to come from it with that perspective of I'm a father and I'm a person that I have a relationship with. But yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. Because also another thing is, I think I hold unconditional love on this such high pedigree, But how can I ever experience it, or how can I ever go through it if I don't show that to myself, if I don't practice it, right? I think maybe the really only true unconditional love that ever exists is the one that you can offer yourself. But if you can't even offer that to yourself, how are you going to even offer a fraction of that to another person? So yeah, that's kind of the motive of why I want to get better at self-talk and loving myself ultimately. Because, and maybe this is the wrong mindset to have, but I think eventually you want to build something that you want to share with other people. You want to have so much love within yourself that you can give love to other people. You want to have so much money that you can offer to people when they need it. But if you don't love yourself, if you don't talk positively about yourself, if you don't encourage yourself, how are you going to encourage other people? How are you going to... Yeah, I mean, you get the point. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if what I just said made any sense, but that's something that I'm still discovering, that I still will get better at, self-talk. And I used to think being self-deprecating or talking negatively to myself is being humble, right? I remember growing up, there was always such a value placed on being humble and being selfless. And especially growing up playing team sports, you always was encouraged to look after another person and kind of put the other person above you, right? Or at least that's how I took it. But funny enough, when I did put other people ahead of me, when I was more self-deprecating, and when I was less accepting to take compliments, and all these things, I had the most unhealthy ego. I was competitive with other people. I compared myself the most. And so that's one thing I want to remind myself of, is that having positive self-talk isn't being arrogant, right? And for some reason, I feel like even showing the slightest bit of affection towards myself, or congratulating myself, or being proud of myself, is arrogance. And I don't know where that came from, but I realize that's not the right way to think. I think one other thing that I really need to work on is being patient. And I think this is why I related to that movie character so much, but I feel like I'm so behind the eight ball on a lot of things in my life. My career, my education, my friendships, my relationships, my ability to love. And yeah, there's the cliche of, oh, everything's at your pace, right? There's no timetable for your life, but I still feel that way. And to make up for that, I think whenever I have an opportunity or whenever I'm doing something, I put so much pressure on myself to achieve a level at which other people will find competent or accept. And I find so much pressure within myself to get to that point, because I feel like I'm not good enough. And if I get to that point, maybe I will. But yeah, being impatient has only led me to get into a car crash, has only led me to get exertion headaches by fucking running 7 miles a day and overexerting myself. And it's only made me more mentally distraught. But it's something I still can't consciously do. I gotta be patient with, for example, right? I'm a personal, and I think a part of this is something I also want to dive into later, that I want to explore more into later, but I definitely have a superiority complex where I think I'm better than people at a lot of things. And maybe it's not a superiority complex, but it's the things that I'm confident in my abilities, right? For example, before I played basketball, I was very confident in my ability to play basketball. And so whenever a challenge would come that would threaten or that would question my ability to play basketball, I had no self-doubt about that. I was always, no, I can do it. I can do this. I'm good, right? I had this innate self-confidence about myself. And I have that about personal training, which is my job, right? I have that about, I believe if I get the right opportunity, I'm the best personal trainer in the world. I truly believe that and a part of that is because I'm willing to put in the effort, right? But thinking about that superiority complex or just that innate confidence, I wonder why I don't have that confidence about myself as a person, right? Because that's ultimately what I know the best. That's ultimately like me. That's what I should have the utmost confidence in. And maybe it's because of habit, but yeah, I don't even know if that made any sense. One thing that happened yesterday where I was going through a really dark time, and something that's interesting is I really wanted to get high. I really wanted to smoke weed, but I didn't. And instead, I kind of felt all the pain I was going through and the frustrations and the anger. And I turned on a YouTube video that was just like reading verses, scriptures, right? And I fell asleep immediately, but I just felt really calm. And so this is another whole subject, but I think for the past couple of years of my life, I've been so reliant on other people. I would try to hang out with people and share my problems so that they would say something that would make me feel better, but that never happened. They would say something where I might feel a little bit better at that moment, but when I got back home, it would always stay the same, right? And so now I realize that other people aren't the answer with my problems. It's a self thing, right? And it's maybe a more spiritual thing, maybe a more religious thing of my relationship with myself as well as God, right? And I have a complicated relationship with religion, and so I'm not very eager to dive into that head first, but that's sort of something that I'm kind of feeling the need for, because I feel like I can't take on life by myself right now, and I find other people not worth relying on, because ultimately only I know what I want, only I know what I'm afraid of, what I'm insecure of everything. I have no idea if what I just said makes any type of sense, but that's kind of my head, and I just kind of want to have these monthly updates on what I'm thinking of, what I'm working on, what I've been going through, so that honestly, I think my end goal is for me to look at myself in the future and be proud of myself. I feel like if I look back on myself as a high schooler trying to make the basketball team, putting in work, being afraid, being insecure of so many things, and I was talking about that stuff and I was working on it, I would be so proud of myself. And I guess that's a good way to start, by telling myself I am proud of myself of going through those things and of actually trying. But I think it would just hit harder on me if I saw it on video, right? And so I want to be able to look back on these videos and be proud of myself. But I want to end off with a couple things that I'm grateful for. And I think the first one would be my ability to exercise, to move. I've had really bad exertion headaches the past week, and so the next week I'm not going to be doing anything intensive physically, but one thing I realize I take for granted so much is just my ability to move, because it's such a emotional release for me that I can always rely on it. Prior to having these exertion headaches, I took it for granted. So I want to be I am grateful for my ability to move, to exercise, and to have a release through that. Okay. I think another thing that I'm grateful for, even though I often feel lonely and I dismiss a lot of this factor in my life, but it's my relationships, right? I'll go through times where I get in a depressive spiral and I say, no one cares about me, right? If I go on a nature walk, a deep hike in my own car, if I ditch my family, if I ditch all my friends and I die, I don't think anyone would really care about me. Sometimes I think like that, but I have to rein myself back and realize that I do have people that care about me. I have a mom, I have a dad, I have a dog, I have friends that I know care about me. So I want to remind myself, and I want to take this time to be appreciative of that, because I know some people don't. Some people genuinely do feel lonely. I feel lonely where I think it's a relationship with myself, right? I don't think I've cultivated this relationship with myself, and I've delayed it for so long that even though I have a decent amount of friends, I feel like there's something missing, right? And so I'm working on that, but I'm so grateful to have people around me that I can call friends and family.